The question today is evolution of workspaces, especially when it comes to mental health, and how we can actually more integrate a more holistic well-being approach into this. And not only well-being when it comes to individuals, but also environmental impact, because it's not only about us, it's also about the planet, and we're an ecosystem, we're a part of it. So if the environment feels like crap, no surprise that some of us might feel like crap. It's only natural. So yeah, or some of us like me are just neurotic to begin with. So hey, so as I mentioned, it's a partnership between Reshape and Headrock. And I would very much advise anybody on this call, if there is a chance to make partnerships for knowledge sharing, I'd actively encourage to do so. Because even in the world of psychology, funnily enough, occupational psychologists don't often talk to clinical psychologists, not to mention HR and L&D. And then we wonder why nobody gets how great our ideas are. Well, we're trying to kind of show that by cooperation, we'll get further along. And we have our two speakers, Kieran and Ellen. And you can introduce yourself better than I can, because I think I spoke for long enough. Over to Ellen. Ellen, if you can say a couple of words about yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I am Ellen Lapworth Maisey. I currently work for DPD as their Wellbeing Coordinator. I'm the Wellbeing Coordinator for the whole of DPD UK, so everything wellbeing related across the entire UK. My background is in health and social care. I'm working in the charity sector. I've only very recently started this job. Well, I say very recently, time seems to be blurring into one really at this point, but started in July last year. So I've only been with the company sort of 8 months, but even in that point, we've seen some really positive changes. And I completely agree with Kieran's point that it's trying to get people back into the front line. You know, we couldn't do the business that we do if we didn't care about our people, particularly being a delivery company with people out and about on the ground all the time. You know, if they weren't there, we wouldn't exist. So I'll be talking to you a little bit later just about the journey that DPD have come on with their wellbeing in the past kind of 7-8 months, and what we're doing with working from home, because we are a massive organisation and we have tens of thousands of employees. Obviously, a good chunk of them can't work from home. You can't sort parcels from your living room, unfortunately. But yes, so that will be what I'll be speaking about later. And obviously, if anyone has any questions, then please ask.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that, Ellen. And yes, the delivery trucks is one of little bits of excitement one gets in the day. You know, when you're working from home and like a DPD truck goes over, it's like, is it for me? Is it for me? And then if your child sees it, it's like, did we get a parcel? And you're like, oh my God, all this expectancy, anxiety. Am I raising a consumeristic monster? But I am one as well. So, but at least it's a bit of excitement and something to think about. But thank you so much, Ellen, for coming as well. Perfect. So now we'd like to know something about you good people. So if you can go to menti.com and type in 40 33 92 3, that number again is 40 33 92 3, and just type in what brought you here today. Sharing knowledge, fabulous first step. Forgot the picture of a little Labrador. It's always really funny how often people who are highly introverted describe extroverts as Labradors, but that's a different story. But talking about curiosity, perfect. And if you just mind unmuting yourself and sharing with us what brought you here today. Anyone? We already heard from Sarah.
I think for me, obviously being a speaker, I've been asked to speak. I think for me, with these sort of sessions are really useful, as I've worked in mental health for the past couple of years, but I haven't worked in this sort of environment before, certainly within HR. So for me, kind of starting out in this role, it's really useful to speak to other professionals, speak to psychologists, other HR professionals, to understand what the world is currently like in various processes. And certainly when I first started this job and I looked at sort of, corporate wellbeing, the Dummies book, because normally that series has something on everything, and it didn't have anything on corporate wellbeing. So for me, as someone starting out in this kind of sector, it's really useful just to hear what people what experiences people have and what knowledge they have. And like someone mentioned before, it's, you know, we don't know everything. So being able to share is so important. So that's certainly a reason I would be here, even if I wasn't speaking.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Somebody developed a webinar addiction, apparently. Should be a new condition. Jonathan, should we get on to DSM-5? DSM-6, webinar addiction. Symptoms include compulsive Zoom sessions. What stands out for you, Jonathan, from this list?
I think what really stands out for me is maybe just the sort of need and the interest in sharing information and sharing knowledge in this space, and maybe that's a sense, maybe as Ellen was saying, is right now we don't really, there's no textbook, there's no guidebook out there, there's nothing that we can really go to, there's no dummies guide, and everything is new right now. There are no answers to any of this, and we are apparently the experts in this space, and we're all working in our different fields, and we all have our different expertises. So the fact that we can all share this information with each other and share what's been working, and share what our hopes and fears are, concerns, and how we can guide organisations as well, because they often pretend they know what they're doing. Often they don't. We're all in the dark here. So I'm very much interested to really. I'm here to listen. I think lots of people here are as well today.
Perfect. And there is a curiosity and wanting to share. So we're also wondering, how are you feeling today? Just generally speaking. So if you can just type in Menti. What comes to mind? The only thing missing in Menti and Zoom is elevator music. Maybe they can build it in. Anyway, hopeful, depleted, fatigued. Yeah, I can definitely. Third lockdown, 3 is not the magic number in this case. I mean, the third lockdown, I just find completely exhausting. But hopeful, good, sunny, vulnerable. Yeah, I can emphasize with that. Driven. And this is what's really interesting, is just the scope of the range of how people are feeling. What's really interesting right now. You know, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And sometimes it changes day by day. I read an interesting little meme on LinkedIn that we're all in the same storm, but different boats. Some of us in a yacht, some of us in a boat, some of us on a door, desperately trying to stay alive. Interestingly, every time I think of a door in the water, I think of the Titanic, but that's a different story, damn it. And but it is that range of emotions. And what has been really kind of surprising is how quickly those emotions change for some people. And this is what has been quite unsettling for quite a few of our clients that we're seeing. And because it just changes from every 15 minutes for some who are not used to that. So that's interesting in itself. Would anybody like to share with us how they're feeling today? Just feel free to unmute.
Maybe, and I just think everyone's feeling a lot worse this time. I think, you know, I mean, obviously time of year, weather, knowing what we've been through already, that we're in the same situation again, lack of end to it this time as well. The promise that we thought that January might be heavy, but February, March would unlock, and for valid reasons. Now, the variants have caused it to be prolonged more than we thought. So there's the fatigue of thinking we've just got to keep pulling it out the bag all the time. Feels to be a strain for more and more people. You know, I think professionally and personally, I felt that amongst people I work with and friends a lot more this time.
Thank you for that, Sue. Yeah, it feels like a slog.
Yeah.
And though we have 15 million vaccinated in UK, I cannot kind of empathize with that number, because it's just like, well, what's next? I'm just curious, Johnson, from a clinical perspective and a therapeutic perspective, what kind of, you know, advice or tips, though you hate those words, I know, what suggestions, recommendations you would have for people who are facing this as a slog?
You Yeah, you've most certainly put the question in a way that makes me most uncomfortable. Thank you very much for that, Nikita. Yeah, so I think, well, I would always ask people about their support networks initially. So I would ask people if their feelings are, if they are struggling with their feelings, then the first step is to find out what's what they've done in the past about that, what works for them, what has worked for them in the past, and even often when you're really down, you forget all of that. Everything's a deep, dark space, and you forget what you've done in the past that can help you to feel better. And again, that's, I think, some of the questions that we put in today are again looking at that maybe more also from an organisational perspective. What has been working, and what can we take forward from this as well as lessons.
Absolutely, that support structure and asking people for help. I mean, now my favorite question is, how can I help? Whenever I have a call or anything else, opens up the conversation. But we also want to, the last question before we hand over to Kieran is the following. Oh, that's me in third lockdown, but that's a different story. Anyways, keep deviating. What's wrong with me today? Actually, it's in line with my personality. But how optimistic are you feeling at this time? So if you can just click on Menti. And hopefully it should work. Will it work?
There wasn't a scale, there was just a submit button.
Yeah. It was going so smoothly. One sec. Let me just correct this. While we pause for technical difficulties. Yeah. Fine. We can do it as a ranking. Well, scales vary, should work, but it doesn't. Mystery. Anyways, let's skip this question from Menti, but would anybody like to share with us how optimistic are they feeling? We can just have a representative sample of 2. I think that's good enough. So who'd like to go first?
Yeah, I'm feeling all right, I suppose, about the situation. Relatively optimistic. I think the fact that a lot of us are lucky to be able to work from home despite everything that's going on, I think that's a really good reason to be optimistic. Despite some people feeling depleted or exhausted. But the fact that we can all be here to share what we want to share and then do other things, I think we're quite lucky in that sense. And that's what's driving my optimism for the future.
I think what's interesting, you can be pessimistic and optimistic at the same time. That's why I like working with Jonathan on creating items, because my response would be pessimistic to optimistic, but actually you can be non and optimistic, and you can also be pessimistic. And so though I am anxious, angry, slightly depressed, but I'm also optimistic because of the jabs and vaccines, and for how long will this continue. Thank you, Kieran. Would anybody else like to chime in? How they feel?
No, I'd just like to point out that that item there, that question was something that came from me at the beginning when we were thinking about what we wanted to ask people. And actually looking at the first question was, where are people at the moment? I must admit that I feel a bit bad about adding that item now, because it's very, very, there's a whole bunch of assumptions there in that question, essentially. Anyway, that's my point. Yeah, I think I made it.
Yes, well, thank you for telling us that maybe your thought pattern sabotaged Mentimeter. Maybe Jonathan has telepathic ability and that's why the question didn't work. But anyways, there could be all sorts of reasons about the quantum entanglement of the universe. And on that note, we're very happy to welcome Ellen, who will be sharing with us what they're doing for their wonderful colleagues at DPD. So over to you, Ellen. You should be now able to share your screen if you wish.
Fab. Oh, crikey. We use Google, so Zoom is just a complete new thing to me. So I was Googling how to use Zoom, ironically, on Google. So bear with me 2 seconds, everyone. I will do that.
It just takes a couple of seconds. Wellbeing in transit. Nice.
I did.
Is that the one?
Yes, I must credit my fiance for that. He loves slogans, so he came up with that. So I can't take any credit for that. Fabulous. If I'm speaking too quickly. Sorry, Nikita?
Oh, no, perfect.
I was going to say, if I'm speaking too quickly or you want to interrupt and ask a question, can you question at the end or anything, just let me know. Fabulous. Yes, my name is Ellen Lapworth Maisey. I am the DPD Wellbeing Coordinator, the very first of its kind, something that DPD had never done before. So I just wanted to give you a little insight into the journey that kind of we've been on, what we've done since I've been employed, and kind of our visions for the next sort of year, and also how we have adapted to people working from home. So I thought I'd just do a little timeline. Unfortunately, I can't go too far back, as I said in my little introduction. I did only join the business in July last year. But certainly towards the end of 2019, there was a need identified within staff. Our CEO, Dwayne McDonald, is exceptionally forthcoming in terms of new ideas. He's always on the lookout for things that are interesting, that are a bit different. And he really cares about staff. So it was sort of a bit of a light bulb moment, really, in terms of, wow, we really need to look after the well-being of our staff a little bit more. And for a bit of context, my role just sit within HR. And up until I was employed, sort of our benefits officers were looking after the well-being programs, and our HR people, who were called business partners, were looking after people's mental health and supporting managers with that. And it's not something they were necessarily trained to do. They didn't have an awful lot of support. So it was very much people spread very thinly with a subject they didn't know an awful lot about. So it was fantastic that DPD suddenly decided, right, we need to do something about this. So yes, I was employed in July 2020, middle of the pandemic, starting a new role, working from home. That was a very interesting time, as I've worked from home before and I've loved it. I'm definitely not a morning person in any way, shape or form. So I loved the idea of not having to commute, particularly now as I was commuting a bit further for this role. But it was very strange starting in the middle of a pandemic, and I didn't actually meet any of my colleagues face to face until I want to say mid-October, when we were allowed to go into the office just for a little bit. But I've only met my boss face to face, I think 3 times. And everyone thought I was a lot taller than I am. So that was a little bit embarrassing when they all met me. So by the end of 2020, though, we have done some really fantastic things. We've trained over 60 mental health champions in the business, and all of them are from senior management up. So people who are, running regions of depots, people who are looking after our massive hubs that employ thousands of people, our executive director team have been trained to become mental health champions. We have a weekly newsletter. Wellbeing Wednesdays has already been mentioned in the comments. My boss thought it was the most revolutionary subtitle thing she had ever heard. And I said, well, in the wellbeing world, it's kind of standard, but if that's what you like to do, that's absolutely fine. So we do Wellbeing Wednesdays with tips about mental health and wellbeing. A couple of examples, we've done a newsletter on support for parents during lockdown. If you have children, whether that you are homeschooling them or whether you're a key worker, as obviously a big portion of our staff are key workers, and what we as a company can do to support you, and what other support there is externally. Another thing which is completely different is that Stop Smoking Day is coming up in March. That's something we're really pushing. We've just partnered with a section of the NHS in Sandwell, so we're going to run a little stop smoking campaign with them. Lots and lots of different things. We started a campaign called Healthy Minds, again, very, very original for wellbeing. And this was essentially to relaunch all of the benefits we already had. I will brag about DPD an enormous amount during this webinar, so I do apologise if any of you are Hermes or DHL fans. We have some fantastic benefits already, but no one knew about them. So it was very much, well, we already have an employee assistance programme. We already have services that people can access for support. We have a helpline. We have the ability to provide staff with 6 sessions of counselling. So really fantastic stuff, but just no one knew about it. So in line with the weekly newsletters, we have a new mailbox, which I manage, which is the Wellbeing Inbox, which I wanted to give staff somewhere else they could go to. So if they didn't know who their regional HR partner is, which is completely understandable considering the size of our business, or they didn't want to talk to their manager about it, they can still go to someone within DPD who knows the processes, but isn't necessarily in their face. People find it much easier to speak to someone just over email. They have no idea who it is. It's an ongoing joke in my department because the wellbeing team manage the wellbeing mailbox and the wellbeing team is just me. We've made several new partnerships. We've been working with an organisation to help people with their sleep. We've been working with a nutritionist. We're on the verge of working with a company that does yoga. So we're really trying to go more into with, actually, we're a delivery company at the heart. We're not a wellbeing offering organisation. So let's work with people who know their stuff. And also, again, just a little bit of a brag, we raised over £40,000 for charity. That was from our Movember initiative. I'm a massive supporter in making sure men's mental health is publicised, looked after and celebrated in our society, but specifically within DPD. Majority of our employees are male, and they're the very stereotypical fit of, you know, white middle-aged men who do not talk about their emotions. So it was really important to me that we got behind the Movember campaign, and we raised a fantastic amount for charity for 5 separate men's health charities. So since the beginning of this year and for the rest of this year, we have started to train mental health first aiders all across the business. And by the end of May, we will have 200 within the business. That sounds like a lot, but for us, that's only 1% of our workforce. So it's a lot, but not a lot at the same time. We're creating new online spaces. Again, with that idea of working from home, we've created a separate part of our internal intranet, which is going to be called our Mental Health Hub. It's going to have all of our past Wellbeing Wednesday newsletters. It's going to have new initiatives that are coming up. It's going to have our mental health first aid directory and all of the support that's available at DPD. I've created some new training for managers. Again, managers at DPD are not employed to be mental health experts or necessarily are trained in how to do the pastoral care for their line managers and other staff beneath them. So that's something I identified that said we need to give them the tools to support their team. So that's something we're doing. We're looking at tailored support for different depots. So we're looking at different regions and saying, right, what are they struggling with? What do they need help with? Because not all depots are the same, because not all people are the same. And there is definitely a difference in terms of north and south. The Midlands, of course, they're still very undecided about which side of the fence they sit on, but we'll get there eventually. And as I said there, we're taking a far more holistic approach to wellbeing. Yeah, we're looking at yoga, we're looking at diet, we're looking at health coaching. It's not just, here's a helpline, ring that number, have a chat type thing. So working from home, big question mark. So for a bit of background, before COVID, or BC as I like to call it, DPD did not work from home. No member of staff worked from home. You come into the office, you work 9 till 5:30, and that is the way things are done. So within the space of a week, thousands of employees had to be sent home with laptops, phones, keyboards, mice or mices, whichever the plural is. And it was a massive undertaking. So our IT team are complete superstars. But since COVID, it's really shown to DPD that people enjoy working from home. It's fantastic for people's well-being. It's flexible. It gives them space. So in line with that, a new policy was created. So people, after the pandemic, people can work from home 2 to 3 days a week, not full-time working, but 2 to 3 days, as that was identified as a happy medium. Some people really did not like working from home. And I think as a couple of people have mentioned, you know, a lot of people aren't lucky. They don't have a separate office space. You know, they've only got one room. They're sharing with other people. It's really tough. So we were aware it's not for everyone. So with working from home, everything obviously had to go online. All of our training, our new starter induction, our conference. Currently we're having our conference. Normally it's at the end of February and all the staff go to a venue in the Midlands, but that's obviously not happening. So they've done it that every Friday there is an hour video for people to watch, which is happening 3 weeks in a row, which is a really nice way, I think, to finish off on a Friday. But all of that had to go online. So it was really tough for our L&D and our HR department to accommodate that. New tech, as I said at the start of the presentation, I don't use Zoom. As a business, we use Google. And January, February, in 2019, the idea was planted that people were going to move systems. So before we used Apple and Google, if you have used the two, they are very, very different. And so really the business as a whole was only just getting used to using Google. And then all of a sudden, everyone had to work from home and use Google. So our poor IT department truly are superstars in supporting all 15,000 members of staff to understand how to turn on their Chromebooks and what on earth is a Google Meet and what on earth is a Google Chat. And as I said, not for everyone. So it's twofold really, that statement. So working from home wasn't for everyone. When we first started working from home, HR had quite a few instances of people saying, actually, it's not safe for me to be at home. It's not a supportive environment. It's not good for my mental well-being. I don't actually feel safe. So we had to really work out how we could support people to go into the office in a COVID secure, safe way that was in line with government regulations. And also, as you're all aware, a large portion of our staff work in depots and hubs, delivering parcels out and about. You know, unfortunately, if you want a t-shirt from ASOS, our warehouse depot in their living room can't really deliver that to you. So it was really tough because we had to tailor our communications about working from home to make sure that people on the shop floor didn't feel excluded and like they weren't sacrificing things because they were going in and having other worries. Health anxiety as a whole was a big thing for DPD because people working from home obviously were scared about going shopping, and people working in the depots were scared about going into work. So it was really important that our comms, our support, everything that we did tailored for everyone. You know, people who work shifts, people who work nights, people who are doing part-time or full-time. We had an enormous array of staff. One big thing as well is that we have a really diverse range of members of staff. Not everyone's language or first language, is English. A lot of people can speak it, but there's quite a few members of our staff that can't write it or read it. So that was a massive issue. So we've had quite a few challenges on the way in terms of what can we do to make sure everyone feels supported. So in line with that, internal support. So as I mentioned, we've done a lot of work internally in terms of creating resources that are made by us for our staff. So I've made a lot of guides, including things like burnout guides, anxiety tips, if you're dealing with health anxiety, you know, stretches at your desk, stretches to do if you've been stood at a conveyor belt sorting parcels, highlighting the wellbeing team, our employee assistance program, everything to do that DPD does, because we do a lot for our staff. It's just telling people about it, which is a really big issue. And external support, like a couple of people mentioned, we don't know everything. So it's saying, you know, there's Mind, there's Rethink, there's the Samaritans, there's the Live Well initiative or Live Better initiative from the NHS. So highlighting that we don't know everything and it's okay if you go outside for external support. It's that awareness as well that it's great that we do lots of things in-house, but no matter how many times you tell staff members, we will not spy on your information, staff feel better going outside because they just don't want DPD to know what's going on. And it's respecting people's privacy and their wishes on that. And we've made it accessible. Now that most people have laptops, mobile phones, I mean, still a good portion of our staff still don't because they simply don't need one. But we're making things more accessible. We're trying to get stuff into the hubs using the old poster paper method, but also doing it so that they're, yes, with our communications, they're sent out weekly. The links are really easy to get to. It's visible in our internal website. So everything that we're doing is shouting that saying well-being is important to us. And we want you to work well from home. And we want the best for you and to support you while you work at DPD. And that someone else mentioned that you matter. And this is all about the people at DPD. So that is it from me. If anyone does have any questions, I hope that was really useful. But yeah, if anyone has any questions, please do let me know.
That was fantastic, Helen, and brilliant presentations, and love the title. So compliments to your partner as well. So clearly a team effort. And I loved how it was a team effort between what you're doing at DPD, but also with your nearest and dearest. So nice and holistic. I absolutely love that there is adaptability to the individual as much as possible. Absolutely.
It's really important to me as a wellbeing professional, but just as a human being, that we look at the individual people, and our people are what make our business. If all of our drivers decided to go on strike, we wouldn't exist. So we have to make sure that people feel valued. And your comment about hedonistic approaches is really interesting, because DPD has been fantastic throughout all of this lockdown, and they've been sending us gifts they've been, I mean, they like their sauces, did DPD. They've been sending us a lot of kind of barbecue sauce packs. I got a pack of brownies for Valentine's Day. They sent us a Christmas advent calendar with food and bath bombs and things in it. So things like that make a huge difference, and every single member of staff in DPD got that, which was fantastic.
And I love it because it covers the range. Like, if you don't like brownies, here's some bath bombs. If you don't like bath bombs or brownies, here's some hot sauce. I mean, barbecue sauce.
Yeah,
so that it's something that somebody will like.
Absolutely. I mean, we do have too many sauces in our cupboard, but I've fed that back to our engagement team, so they know.
Very interesting problem to have as an organization. Too many sauces in your
Very
cupboard.
blessed.
Yeah, specific. But any questions for Ellen?
I don't have a question. I just wanted to kind of say that I really enjoyed that. What I really enjoyed about it most is it's very practical for me. I like to work in really practical ways. So I'm always interested to hear what kind of other solutions people have had. And especially when you've said in terms of not just providing, I think a lot of organizations will say, we've got employee assistance, you can ring a number, you can have 6 telephone sessions. That's not what every single person needs. Somebody might need some yoga or something else, something that's individual to a person that can make all the difference. Because we talk about kind of our customers and clients and stuff, we talk about individualized care, but then with our staff, we don't necessarily provide that individualized support. The fact that you're looking ahead post-pandemic to offer semi-working from home situation, potential opportunity as well. I just think it's really, really good. And I think the gifts are a nice little icing on the cake. I work for a charity, which you'd never get a gift of, unfortunately. But
having worked for a charity, yeah, I can get that.
You wouldn't. You're lucky if you got a packet of biscuits at Christmas.
A pen.
But it's nice, isn't it? It's just everybody likes, like you said. When we're working from home, the parcel comes and you're excited. So it's even more exciting if it's something you're not expecting. So thank you very much. I really enjoyed that.
That's okay. And certainly for us, I've always joked with my boss, well, we're a delivery company. I think the least we can do is deliver something to our staff.
Absolutely.
Thank you. That was really lovely. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, and picking up on Claire's point about pragmatism, I loved the relaunch as well, because so many organizations say, we have an EAP program. You talk to the staff and it's like, I heard of it, but I have no idea. Should I contact my HR? Should I contact somebody else? So what is the confidentiality of it? And just spelling out, like, first 6 sessions free, they won't even contact us with your details. Here's the number.
Absolutely. And it was so important to us because it's been really heartwarming in a way, because we have had quite a few sort of quite difficult mental health concerns, certainly since I've started. And some managers have sort of almost pleadingly sent me an email saying, please, could we, pay for staff to have counselling sessions? And I say, we already do. They don't have to pay. It's fine. And certainly, our CEO absolutely loathes the term EAP. He hates it because it's just, no one knows what it is. And even when you say employee assistance program, what on earth does that actually mean? So to say, well, we have a helpline, we have counselling sessions, etc. And in line with that, we changed the processes recently, because before, managers had to sign off and say that they were happy for their staff member to have counselling. I changed that because I said, if they have problems with their manager, they're not going to want their manager to know that they are having counselling sessions, because it could be about them. They're not going to know that. So just to really minimize the amount of people involved, because yes, mental health is brilliant and we should talk about it and it should be celebrated, but at the end of the day, it's someone's personal business, so we don't want to brag about it and talk about it with everyone and their mum. So it's just trying to reduce that number of people involved.
Streamline it. But I love that managers write into you, and it's like, actually your job as a manager to know that you have this, because so often HR says, well, our managers know about EAP programs. And I'm just like, really? That's your policy? Good luck. Yeah. I mean, that's why probably EAP providers love it, because they get the money, but nobody calls.
Well, this is the thing, we're paying for, I think it's for 15,000 members of staff to have access to this. We are wasting our money because no one knows about it. So really from a business point of view, it's not best practice. But yeah, it's just, so I'm really looking forward to our next meeting with our EAP provider to just see if the numbers have gone up. And that was a big thing as well, to say to our director leadership team, it's a good thing if the numbers go up. It means people are accessing the support and they're not on their own. So don't panic. Not everyone's really miserable, and everyone suddenly is hating working at DPD. It's that they finally have somewhere to go for support.
And I love that you put down this context before the numbers came out, so you prepped them.
Yeah. So just FYI.
Excellent. Any other questions or thoughts for Ellen?
Hi, Ellen. I was interested in how line managers might be coping as a bottleneck sometimes. The catalyst between the employer and the employee, and how stressful it might be for them when they're trying to manage all their employees who they don't see quite often.
Yeah, absolutely. And that has highlighted a real issue, certainly where the pandemic is concerned, in terms of shift managers have such large responsibility. I mean, some of our depots, maybe there's only 20 members of staff and there's only one shift manager. Some of our depots and our hubs are the really big sites, have 2,000 members of staff and there's 30 different shift managers. And it doesn't matter how many shift managers you have, they will still feel overwhelmed because that's a lot of people to manage. So when I mentioned the training for managers, it's almost 50-50. It's half what you can do to support your colleagues and also what we can do for you. And it's highlighting that support isn't just for warehouse staff. And I say this to my HR colleagues. Yes, we are HR, but we can access this support as well. It's not just for other people. It's for everyone. The CEO could ring up and book a telephone appointment if he wished. So yeah, it's really highlighting that if we want our staff to be supported, the person above them has to be supported. So it's that kind of cake tiered effect almost. And this is why it was amazing when our senior managers and our senior management team said, yeah, let's train us to be mental health champions, so we know about it and we know the struggles. So yeah, it's a really interesting point and definitely something that I am hoping to support managers with over the coming months.
There's a difference between a manager being an employee and an employer, and feeling they have the same comfort as an employee does in all the support you're offering, which is great to hear you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. And Johnson, from your perspective, what are your thoughts?
I was just wondering, Ellen, what is a mental health champion?
Oh, now that is a very good question. So a mental health champion's role is different to a mental health first aider. So a mental health champion's role is essentially to raise awareness of mental health in the workplace and to champion openly speaking about mental health. They also signpost, to our employee assistance program, to me as the wellbeing coordinator, to the wellbeing team, which is still just me under a different guise. So they are there to almost kind of like the beacons for mental health is the way I kind of talk about them, that they're there to raise awareness and say, hey, mental health is a thing. That's okay. Whereas with mental health first aiders, they're the people, obviously, as everyone knows, to kind of to listen and to have the time to sit. But yeah, our mental health champions are kind of tasked with putting out the leaflets and making sure they're on the notice boards and making sure everyone knows about stuff. So yeah, they're our ambassadors / champions. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they advocate mental health in the organisation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Is there any support for those guys as well, just in case they get involved in something heavy?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So with the mental health first aiders that are going to be trained and with the current mental health champions, I sort of supervise all of those people. I don't line manage because I'm obviously not their manager, but they have my contact details and we have sort of semi-regular catch up. It's kind of every couple of months just to kind of a check in with people to say, how are you doing? Has anything happened? Also as a reporting thing, because it's really useful for me to then say, well, what are the big concerns coming out of your depot? And is that different to, Bradford and Smethwick could have completely different things. So yeah, it's very much saying, well, again, with the line managers thing, they can't support people if they're not supported. And statistically, it's been shown that mental health first aiders don't really work if they're not supported. So it's making sure that it's the very kind of cuddly bunny kitten sort of effect. As long as everyone is looked after, everyone will be fine.
I think what's important is that they incorporate mental health into the actual organisational culture. Absolutely. As opposed to just having processes in place.
100%.
Yeah.
And it's having that culture change, which is a really big thing. Certainly within DPD, it's mental health is very much talked about. It's something that I think people want to provide support for, but they just didn't know how and they didn't have the forums to do it. So now that I've come in and we've got channels of communication and people to look after it and say, come on, let's do something about it. You know, slowly we're getting there, but I think certainly within kind of the shop floor, as we call it, I think it will take a couple of years just for that culture change to be more open. And my boss is great because she always says, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day, and I'm thinking, why doesn't everyone know about this by now? And it's tough when you work in mental health and wellbeing, because you think, it's just common sense really, isn't it? But it's really not to a lot of people. You know, so yes, I have to remind myself that, yeah, it's not going to be done by the end of the year.
No, culture change takes a long time, and leaders need to be open to that change as well.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. Yeah, that is a good, yeah.
And be it environmental change, mental health, and a bit of both. But what I loved is this holistic approach, but it was also the individual angle and bringing in new stuff as well as reinvigorating the old. And I think this is what's really kind of consistently building that level of expertise and care within the thing, and maybe bring in the clinical psychologist, etc., sometimes into the mix as well. Because what's really, I love it when companies make like a hub of knowledge internally and bring in people to build on that. And the little things go usually the longest way.
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, a good example is we've been working with a very small organisation that do sleep courses for people who are struggling with their sleep. They have insomnia or sleep apnea. You know, we do not have the expertise to run that in-house. And obviously we have shift workers, people who work nights, people who drive very heavy vehicles. So it's very important that they are sleeping well and being looked after. And we've had a fantastic response, you know, even though, I mean, we paid, I think, for 15 places just to get initial interest. 8 people have gone on it, and everyone has said, this has been fantastic. This is incredible. And you know, they couldn't get that support on the NHS because it would take, you know, years for them to get anywhere. So things like that. And it doesn't matter to me that it's 8 people. We really helped those 8 people. And that's the thing that we need to remember.
Well, thank you so much, Ellen, and thank you so much, Kieran and Jonathan, also for chiming in as well. We still have 10 minutes just for kind of free flow discussion in other things that we do, because this is a community. If you, by the way, Kieran, Ellen, are you happy for people to connect with you via LinkedIn?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Happy to connect. If people need any research or anything like that, do let me know. I'm happy to help.
And also, if you would like to connect with each other on this call, just type in your like LinkedIn, how they can find you on LinkedIn, like name, surname, job, or LinkedIn can provide also shares a web page. So you can just type it into chat and just connect with each other in the last 10 minutes. If you want to, completely optional, but you never know. It is fun. Damn it, Ellen, you like got me thinking about brownies. I can't concentrate right now. And like, but then Kieran got me thinking about my environmental impact of those brownies, but then the hedonism.
You need to survive. So, it's fine. Heat them up in an efficient way.
As long as they reduce the plastic, right?
That's it. There's no plastic.
So it was all.
And I don't order them from US. So that should be fine.
Stick to local businesses.
Yeah, that's also helps.
And walk there.
I just want to hear from you good people, like what's your key takeaways? Do you have any kind of final questions or thoughts for either Kieran, Ellen, Jonathan, anyone?
I'm very interested in how people are going to take on board Kieran's point, which is powerful, about working in the office in winter and at home in the summer. You know, getting that message out there when companies are thinking about how they'll get people back into the office is going to be interesting.
We could have a hybrid working culture, and that's where companies implement that in their organization, so they actually encourage people to come into the office as and when they need. So like 2 days in the office, 3 days at home, and they can mix and match those weeks, or just come in on like team meeting days or team social days once a month to begin with, as retrenchment starts, and then they could evolve it further depending on how the situation goes with the government at the same time. But what's good is, so hybrid working culture, I think, works, and even I think the big fours are going to be advocating that as a part of their professional services.
I think hybrid working, as you say, is the way ahead, but I don't know if people have realised just the difference between home working summer and, you know, having a bit more of a block of summer at home, winter in the office is quite a powerful thing, which goes beyond hybrid working. It's like seasonal working, or, you know,
almost seasonal working. Yeah,
it's really interesting as an environmental point.
I was thinking as an environmental point, all of those huge spaces around which are going to be redundant now as well, and all of that building that won't be needed in the long term, and if, as you're saying, if those spaces are needed at some point during the year, then this is something that will evolve over sort of the next 20 years or so, really, to see really how, with the environment in mind as well, how to make best use of spaces. And at the same time be thinking about people's mental well-being at the same time.
Well, those spaces have to be, instead of having them for desks and cubicles or whatever, they could be used as collaboration spaces and promoted in that way from a mental well-being perspective. So, you know, don't come into the office just so you can open up your laptop. In fact, leave your laptop at home and come into the office anyway. We're going to have a collaboration day, or we've got a team meeting, and we don't need everyone to bring their laptops in and stuff like that. So the space in itself has to be re-engineered in terms of its use.
So you're advocating more pubs, essentially?
I am, yes, damn right. No, pubs, I mean, aside to the alcohol that we consume and the rest of the chemicals we might consume in a pub space, but we've got to think about what else that pub actually provides for a person. And so it's all the things around it and not just about the alcohol itself.
I totally agree. I know before the pandemic and before I was employed, our SMT were thinking about having sort of wellbeing rooms in our offices, which is something that I used to have. I used to work for the Stroke Association, and they had a big thing about making sure, they called it sensory rooms, and it was great. I loved it, but that's probably because I'm quite childish. But they had sort of like glittery lava lamps and bean bags and plants and things, and you could use it as a space if you needed to make a private phone call or something personal came up and you just needed 5 minutes just to be. So I'm hoping that when we do go back into the offices, I mean, I'll have to suggest that very delicately. You know, might be a bit much for DPD at this point. Be 3 years time. To sort of say, well, yeah, actually, let's have a space for staff to do that and to just come in and just be chill. You know, it doesn't have to be all work and no play in that respect. So yeah, I think it's obviously the pandemic has been horrific for so many other reasons, but I think it's been the catalyst for really significant corporate change. I think it just would not have happened otherwise.
Agreed.
Excellent. And let's hope this change continue in a positive way. So talking about continuing the conversation, I believe, and Jonathan, correct me if I'm wrong, but our next session will be on the 16th of next month, which should be March, last time I checked. Same time, details will be up online. And this will go up on our YouTube channel, the Reshape YouTube channel. And yeah, if you have any questions, just let us know. But thank you so much, Ellen and Kieran, for this illuminating conversation. And Jonathan, any final words before we log off?
No, I'm wondering, we've got a couple of people in mind to talk next time, but if you particularly have any particular issue that you want brought into this space, or if you have anything that you particularly want to talk about in this space as well, we're very much open to hearing, because this is a space really predominantly for sharing ideas and moving forward in this space as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, and see you soon. And stay safe and happy and minimize carbon footprint. And don't forget to use those bath bombs and eat those brownies and enjoy it as much as possible, given the current circumstances. But thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.